everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover Bookstore. And for those of you who may be watching who are not familiar with our store, my Tattered Cover Bookstore is a local independent bookstore in Denver, Colorado. We have 4 locations in the Denver metro area, and we just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for joining our virtual community. We would not be here without your support and help, especially over the last year, but even more so over the last 50 years. Tattered Cover turns 50 this year. 2021 is our 50th anniversary, and it is something that is crazy to think about, that a bookstore can be 50 years old. But that is in large part, almost in all the part, thanks to you, the community who has supported us, stood by us, and continue to shop locally so that we can bring amazing events to you, whether it's virtual or in person. We're grateful for that. So thank you for being a part of our community tonight as well. I want to let you know that closed captioning is enabled for those who might need it. There's a black bar down at the bottom of the screen with a button labeled CC on it. If you click that button, closed captioning will be enabled should you want it or need it. Also, I want to go back and just let you know that Tattered Cover is open right now. We are open to the public, all 4 of our stores. You can come in and visit us as long as you're wearing your mask over your mouth and your nose. You can come browse the shelves for about 90 minutes or so and come smell the books, enjoy, walk around as you like. But if you're like me and you want to stay in your pajamas, or if you're one of those people watching us from not in the Denver metro area, thank you for that. You can always shop online at tatteredcover.com. Our website is open 24/7, and you can get your copies of new releases, such as the novel we're talking about tonight, Smoke. And you can order that online as well. I want to let you know about some upcoming events, which you can also find on our website at tatteredcover.com/event. We have so many coming up. We have Kazu Ishiguro with Clara and the Sun, and that event is Wednesday, March 10th. That book just came out on Tuesday as well. And we have Gregory Brown, who's a debut author, and his book is The Lowering Days, and you can check that out. That event is going to be March 18th. There's so many more events coming up, and you should always get updates by signing up for our email newsletter as well. And now I want to talk about our event tonight. You know, this is such a treat, and we're so excited to have this author here. Joe Ide is of Japanese American descent. Growing up in South Central Los Angeles, Joe's favorite books were the Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes stories. The idea that a person could face the world and vanquish his enemies with just his intelligence fascinated him. Joe went on to earn a graduate degree and had several careers before writing his debut novel, IQ, inspired by his early experiences and his love of Sherlock Holmes. Joe lives in Santa Monica, California, and as a lover of Sherlock Holmes myself, it is my honor tonight to welcome a fellow fan, Joe Ide. And I'm going to have him turn on his microphone and camera here, and we'll get started. There it is. Just a minute. There's his microphone. Perfect.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I'm prompted to turn on the video here. No worries.
Video? Oh, yeah.
There it is. Hello.
Hello. Oh,
welcome, Joe. Thanks for being here.
Really.
Here.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Well, I would love for you to start us off by telling us what you can about your latest novel, Smoke. And then I hear you have a talk prepared for us, which I'll let you take it away.
A few things. Smoke is the 5th IQ book. It has two main plots, and one is Isaiah. At the end of High Five, the last book, he got chased out of town by this network of gangs, and he was also tired, just tired of his work. And so he left town, and it picks up in Smoke. He has PTSD. He's just seen too much violence, too much mayhem, and he doesn't want to be IQ anymore. And he has no direction. He had to leave Grace, the love of his life, and he's just driving. And he gets up to Northern California, and he stops in this little town called Coronado Springs, charming little town, woods all around. He figures, well, you know, good place to rest. And so he gets a little guest house. He starts reading books and taking walks, and it's, you know, it's starting to work, this relaxed thing. And then he comes home one day, and this kid has broken into his house. And his name is Billy Sorensen. He just escaped from the neuropsychiatric ward at the local hospital, and he was starving, so he broke in to get something to eat. Billy is one of these semi-hysterical people who's frenetic and a little paranoid. He's the kid that, he saw the aliens land on the mountain, and he knows the politicians are out to shoot him, and he wanted that guy. And so Isaiah, who he doesn't, the last thing he wants is a client. And so but he still has his IQ, compassion, takes the kid in, feeds him, and the kid starts to tell his tale about this killer who's killed 17 people, is coming to Coronado Springs. Only Billy knows. And this killer is coming to kill someone specific, but Billy doesn't know who that is. So Isaiah, he doesn't want to hear this. He just doesn't want to hear it. Let him kill somebody. Just leave me out of it. So he, but over the course of a few days, Billy makes a strong case. His mother's a DA, so he has access to FBI records and all the law enforcement databases. And he builds a case. And Isaiah reluctantly gets involved. And he has two tasks. One is to stop this guy, and the other is to identify the victim. And so he is with Billy, the kid that nobody regards and nobody listens to. And so that's his mission. And I'll say that Isaiah's never come so close to death. He's never been in this much physical peril. And he's never had to tax his detective skills to this degree under this kind of stress. The other story is about his semi-friend, Juan L. Dodson. Dodson is an ex-hustler. He is opportunistic. He's smooth. He's very self-involved. And Dodson has this just straight ahead, no nonsense wife, Charisse. And she's tired of his chronic unemployment. And she says to him, "That's it. You're done being unemployed. I got you an internship at a big ad agency downtown." Now, Dodson, he's from the hood. And he argues, of course, he says, "Well, I'll stick out like Lil Wayne at Sean Hannity's birthday party." And, it's just going to be, culturally a mess. I'll embarrass everybody. But Charisse is not hearing it. She says, "We will bridge the cultural differences." And she enlists her mother, Gloria, Dodson's mother-in-law, to help him make the transition. They hate each other, and they've hated each other for a long time. If Dodson doesn't go along, Charisse will kick him out of the house, which terrifies him. So he goes along. And Dodson, who looks like a hood rat and dresses like a hood rat, has to wear a suit and a tie and Oxford shoes and get his hair cut like Will Smith. And he has to listen to, Ed Sheeran and what's her name? Those people.
Billie Eilish, Lana Del Rey, somebody.
There you go. Those people. And he can't stand it. He just can't, he thinks Ed Sheeran looks like a toadstool. And the music, he decides if anybody wants to talk about music, he'll talk about jazz, because nobody knows anything about jazz. And she makes him work on his speech, because he talks like he's from the hood. And she makes him binge watch Friends and say everything they say the way they say it. So she's putting him through these hoops. And when he finally goes to work, he is truly a fish out of water. And he's been assigned to this executive. And the executive is about to retire. He's trying to hang on his last year, one more year, and he gets to retirement. His boss hates him, wants to fire him. And he, as a creative executive, he's got nothing left, nothing. And he can't contribute at all. And so Dodson figures, well, if the guy loses his job, I lose my internship. So Dotson, with his own background, with his street smarts, starts to create the ads for this ad executive. And it's this weird version of Cyrano de Bergerac. And Dotson, it turns out, is pretty good at it. And he has to make some serious life choices. So that's the book in a nutshell. As you said, I do have some things I wanted to talk about. I get asked certain questions pretty frequently, and one of them is about publishing, how to get published, and how publishing works. And I thought I'd talk about my own experience. I'll say at first that book publishing is the most competitive business around. In my genre alone, there are thousands upon thousands of books already in print, not to mention the hundreds of new books that come out week after week. So if you get a book published at all, congratulations. That's a feat. That's seriously an accomplishment. However, if your aspiration is to be a career novelist and to make your living writing books, man, that's a whole other level. If that is your aspiration, I'm going to be talking about how to up your odds, because there's just no way to guarantee. But in terms of upping your odds, you probably want to be published by one of the big 5 houses. They pay more, and they have the bigger budgets to promote your work. That's not to say a smaller house can't build your career. Many have, but we're talking about upping your odds. For a new writer, it is almost impossible to put yourself in front of the public in any meaningful way. You have to cut through all the book noise, as well as every other kind of entertainment noise. And to up your odds, you need a publishing company that's behind you, that believes in your book, and that has the resources to put you forward. Publishing isn't some philanthropic effort on behalf of literature. It's a business, and they're looking for good products. There's a finite number of dollars in the marketplace. So if you make a sale, you have to take away a sale from somebody else. So there I am, at Tattered Covers, and I'm looking at Michael Connolly, Laura Lippman, Robert B. Parker, and you, the new guy. Well, you're going to lose that contest unless you bring the heat. There's media coverage, there's buzz, there are great reviews. So again, if your ambition is to be a successful novelist, to up your odds, your book almost just has to be killer. Writing novels, it's a career, a profession like any other, like being a firefighter or a nurse or a blacksmith or any profession you can name. It takes multiple skill sets learned over a long period of time. There's just no way around that. Think of a career where that doesn't apply. Think of your own job. Nobody can just walk in and do your job. You need that long experience. You need to practice those skills. Aspiring writers don't really like to hear the long time, takes a long time thing. You hear somebody say, well, I'm going to write a bestseller in 6 months. Well, no, you're not. You're not going to sell it. No, you're not. I mean, in what other line of endeavor would that logic apply? I'm going to be a great carpenter in 6 months and build a house. No, in 6 months, you'll cut your arm off with a bandsaw. And why wouldn't it take that long? I mean, truly. Lots of aspiring writers assume that because they can write other things, for business or school, they can also write a novel. That's not true either. Because you can play golf does not mean you can play tennis. Now, it's a wholly different set of skills. You see these gurus who say 12 steps to writing a bestseller. Well, how many steps are there to become a successful teacher? There are no steps. It's just a lot of hard work. The gatekeepers are the agents and editors. These are your judges, and you cannot get anything past them. These people have spent their lives reading and evaluating books. And nobody gives you a break because you're new, or at some time in the future, you have great potential. Your book either stands up to scrutiny or it doesn't. I'll say that the biggest thing standing between the aspiring writer and getting published is the writing itself, separate and apart from content. If you don't write at a professional level, nothing else will save you. Not character, not story, not possible franchise, not you have a lot of great ideas. None of that matters because your gatekeeper only has the page in front of them. They don't know anything else about you. And at this point, they don't want to know anything about you. They want to see what's on the page. And if you don't write at a high level, you're just done. You're done. I've never heard anybody in publishing say that they will read more than 25 pages before they close the book. Most say 10 or 15. I had a reviewer say 2. I read 2 bad pages, I'm out. I mean, they have thousands of choices. So why waste their time if the writing isn't there? I mean, it's like applying for a job at NASA and saying, well, I just skipped the whole aeronautics thing. It's just too much math. It's too complicated. So that's a big hurdle. It took me 3 years to write the first IQ book. And I came from a screenwriting background. So I figured, I got the writing part. I've been making a living, and turns out that wasn't true. In a screenplay, if there's a nice house in suburbia, you write exterior, nice house in suburbia. They don't let you do that in books. So I discovered. And it took me a full year to learn how to write clear, decent prose. Not anything fancy, just clear, decent prose. I had to go back to the beginning. It was very humbling. I'm reading Elements of Style and on writing well. And I'm writing while I'm doing this, and I'm making every mistake you could possibly imagine. My writing was clumsy and awkward, and it was just awful. Every mistake you could possibly make. And it took a year of steady writing and evaluating my writing constantly to get to a point where I could just, write prose. You're only going to get one chance to put your book in front of a real gatekeeper. 1, 2 if you're lucky. Don't blow it. Don't go early. Don't go until your book will satisfy those gatekeepers. And now you know who they are. New writers, they get ahead of themselves. I go to these conventions and there's all this chatter about agents and marketing and movie options. And the book comes first. Write the great book first. All that other stuff, it's fun to think about, but it does not apply yet. That's way in the future. And new writers hurry. They're anxious, to make the money and get the glory, which is fine. Those are certainly among my motivations. But if you end up with an okay book, then what was the point of hurrying? Many new writers think somebody's going to steal their idea. No, they're not. Ideas are highly overrated. Michael Connelly, Louise Penny, Robert B. Parker, detective, case. It's the execution that counts. Well, a high concept idea will help, but again, only if you execute. Writer friend Felicia Yap, she wrote a book called Yesterday, and here's the one-liner. A woman has to solve a murder, but she can only remember what happened yesterday. It's killer. But she would not have sold it unless she executed, and she's a terrific writer. Also, disabuse yourself of the notion that publishers are looking for something in particular. You might hear somebody say, we're looking for the next Harry Bosch. But what they mean is, we're looking for the next Michael Connelly. We're looking for writers who can sustain a career and write quality book after quality book, because that's the only way anybody makes money. And I'll explain that in a bit. Reagan Arthur, the publisher at Knopf, said, I want what all publishers want, great writing and a fresh voice. And she didn't say anything about an idea. Remember that book, Life of Pi? About this Tamil Indian boy who spends 28 days on a lifeboat with a tiger? How's that for an idea? The book was on the bestseller list forever. You see advertising for books and seminars, find out what's hot, YA, sci-fi, fantasy. I'll tell you, if it's a great book, everything is hot. Write the great book and everything is hot. And that's really your best shot at getting published, is to write a story you love, that you have to write, because you're more likely to put in the work and dedication that you will need to write a successful novel. Money. Nobody really talks about money. I didn't know anything about money when I got into it. But advances from one of the big fives range from $25,000 on the low end and $100,000 on the high end. $100,000 being very rare. You hear about the $1 million advances and all that, but they're so rare as to be irrelevant. Most advances from the big five land somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. I got a $100,000 advance for IQ for 2 books. And the only reason I got a little more is because my agent is a big deal and they didn't want to piss her off. Okay, the deal broke down like this for IQ. I got $40,000 up front, $20,000 for IQ, and $20,000 for the book yet to be written. And then I got $15,000 when I finished the rewrites of IQ, to my editor's satisfaction. That's a big deal, to your editor's satisfaction. He said that some writers walk away from their deals because they cannot do the rewrites. Now, this takes months, because a good editor will take their time making very detailed notes, and you're not the only writer they're editing. You're not the only thing the editor has to do. And so that ordinarily takes months before that happens. And so when you get them done, you get another $15K. And then I got another $15,000 when the book launched. And between the time it was edited and the time it launched, more months went by. So I got $70K, stretched out over a year. You take away 15% commission for the agent and taxes, and I got what I got. And before I made a dime of royalties, I had to pay that $100K back. And it goes, you get 5% royalty on the first 5,000 books, and then 10% for the next 5, and then 15% after that. You're paying back your advance, at those rates. IQ, it came out of the gate. It came out like a bullet. But I didn't get any royalties until the year after that. And the check was something like 10 grand. And that's why you have to write book after book to make a living. And that's why publishers are looking for writers who are good enough to sustain a career. Now, mind you, as you're writing these books, they're probably losing money because if they believe in your book, they're putting resources behind it. They're putting resources behind it. And in the beginning, your sales are just low. That's all. You're new. And it takes a while before you actually start to make money worth talking about. For me, it was about on the third book, Wrecked, because it got reviewed well. So people started buying the first book, and they buy the second, and you get momentum like that. So it's, again, you have to be good enough to sustain a career. TV and movie options. I talked to my own agent who does books to media. I told him I was going to be speaking, and I wanted the folks to be realistic, about what to expect. And he said, "You want to be realistic? You're not going to sell it." Meaning, options are extremely rare. No matter what you hear in the media, those are just the successes. You have to look at this in context of thousands of submissions. The producer of the IQ TV show, Chuck Roven, he's a big deal producer. He said the average fee from a major producer, which he's one of, goes from $500 to $7,500. There was a 6-way bidding war for IQ, and I got $22,500 as an option fee. Again, less 15% in my taxes, and I got what I got. So my point here is be realistic about money. There are other questions I get asked frequently, and one of them is about character, how they come about. And a lot of that has to do with the writer's empathy, the ability to get inside your character's head, see the world the way they do, not to judge, but to understand motivation. If you don't understand that, then how do you know what your character is going to say or do in any given situation? Let's say, for example, you walk into the den and your significant other is lying on the sofa watching TV. And the very first thing you do is make a judgment. You know, like, he's such an incredible slob. I mean, you know, how hard is it to put on both slippers? You know, there's no point wearing a robe if you're not going to close it in the front. Instead of asking writers questions. You know, why is there a vacant look in his eyes? Why is he watching a program he doesn't like? Why is he wearing a bathrobe at 5 p.m? All the writers you admire are students of human nature. And basically what this means is, shut up. Stop talking. When I go in a social situation, I say as little as possible. You know, I don't need to tell my favorite anecdotes, and nobody needs to hear them. You know, I'm no longer a participant. I'm a spy. I watch, I listen. Who's lying? Who has a hidden agenda? Who's a drinker? Who can't stand their partner? I try and imagine why they're doing what they're doing, why they're saying what they're saying, because that's what you do when you create a character. You know, I'm looking for details, facial tells, voice inflection, posture, you know, little things that will make a character real, credible. And speaking of details, a woman friend of mine said, you know, you can't tell a woman's economic status anymore by their clothes because everybody wears jeans and Nikes. But you can almost always tell by their handbag. I'm going to use that somewhere. I walk my dog about the same time every day. So I'm walking along, and this woman comes out of her house, and I know she was waiting for me because she comes out a little too quickly. She's walking a little faster than she has to. And we somehow converge on the sidewalk. And she immediately starts telling me about her trip to India. You know, how she ate street food, she didn't get sick, and she went to the temple where the rats or the monkeys are, and she took a raft up the Ganges. And I'm thinking, she's not telling me about India. She's telling me, look how adventurous I am. Look what a risk taker I am. You know, I'm not a rich lady lying around in my house. You know, I'm out there in the world. I'm cool. And because I know that about her, I can write about her. And if your characters say should make those observations, you've just like that made that character observant and thoughtful. And I accumulate little incidents like that. And you sort of build up a storehouse of them. And you start to get more sensitive to these little things that happen. And they bleed into your writing. They make your writing more dense, you know, more detailed, more human. And again, shut up. I said 3 words talking to that woman. There's a tendency, I think, especially in the crime genre, to define a character by 2 things. One is lifestyle. Character lives in a penthouse, drives a Maserati, or he lives in a log cabin, drives an old Jeep. And the other is expertise. You know, pilot a helicopter and scuba diving and knows how to use all these weapons. Those things are fine by me. I use them myself. But that's not really the essence of character. The essence of character is what that character is thinking and feeling while they're doing whatever it is they're doing. I'm not all that interested in character throws people off rooftops. I can throw somebody off a rooftop. What interests me is what that character is thinking and feeling before, during, and after he throws somebody off a rooftop. And that's what will differentiate that character from every other character that throws people off rooftops. I tell aspiring writers, there's no new ways to kill people. You're not going to impress anybody with cannibalism or poison suppositories or any other damn thing. But that guy who thought a poison suppository was a good idea, he's of interest. But only if you can impart in that character some element of humanity. In the third book of the series, Wrecked, the bad guy is a man named Walzak. He's ex-CIA, committed atrocities at Abu Ghraib, runs a big security company like Blackwater. So we know he's powerful and ruthless, and there's absolutely nothing new there. Walzak is hunting for a woman named Sarah. She has photos of him at Abu Ghraib doing horrible things. And this is Walzak's reflection. He envisioned the photos appearing in the New York Times and on CNN. You could see the media outrage metastasizing to every country in the world. His name synonymous with cruelty, depravity, and perversion. The most excruciating part, his family. The business was Earth and he was Atlas, but his family was his only true source of happiness and the only people he knew who still saw him as a patriot, a hero, and a great human being. He had to destroy those pictures. The thought of his darling wife, Patty, seeing him rape a helpless woman made him sick. The thought of his precious son, Noah, knowing his father was a monster, made him want to die. He'd never been so afraid. Not when the desert night was lit with tracer rounds and the mortar shells exploded so close you thought you were finished and you could hear your fellow soldiers screaming and dying in the rubble. None of it frightened him more than the revelation of his beastly heart. I don't have that. I don't have a character. A writer named John Rogers wrote, and I'm really paraphrasing him here. You can't really understand a bad guy until you realize he's a good guy in his own life. That's true. You ask a drug dealer, are you a bad guy? Hell no, dude. I'm just out here surviving. I'm taking care of my own. He doesn't see himself as a bad guy. And I think that's the kind of understanding and empathy you have to have with your characters. And to find those human modes, to find, that kind of emotion, because, you didn't do what Walzak did, but you can identify with his feelings and the importance of his family and how he would feel if he was shamed. In building a character, relevant details are important. This is another skill set. Being able to describe someone or something without an entire rundown. This is from something I'm writing now. Her name was Clara. She wore toe rings, different kinds of hats, and she played the clarinet. She liked festivals of any kind. She's a very secondary character, but I need to note her, and that's enough. You can think of relevant details as clues to what the person is like, and if the clues are on point, the reader will imagine the rest. This is from IQ, chapter 1, first paragraph. Now, I want to tell the reader, can you hear my dog? Don't worry about my dog. Okay. I want to tell the reader where we are without giving a whole description of the hood. Isaiah's crib looked like every other house on the block, except the lawn was cut even, the paint was fresh, and the entrance was a little unusual. I use the word crib instead of house. That's your first clue. And if your house is distinguished because the lawn is cut even, you're not in a good place. The security screen was made from the same heavy-duty mesh they used to cage in crackheads and bank robbers at the Long Beach police station. big clue. The front door was covered with a thin walnut veneer, but underneath was a 20-gauge steel core set in a cold steel frame with a pick-proof, bump-proof, drill-proof, Medico double-cylinder high-security Maxim deadbolt. You'd need some serious power tools to get past all that. And even if you did, there was no telling what you'd be into. Word was the place was booby-trapped. The paragraph serves a dual purpose. One is to tell the reader where we are, but the other is to intrigue the reader, to invite them in. I spend all this time on the door, but I'm trying to get the reader to ask, who needs a door like that, man? Who needs a lock like that? And mostly what I want the reader to ask is, who lives behind that door? And that's my invitation to read the next page. And the other thing is conflict. In almost every situation, you can find conflict. And that's why the reader is reading, to see how these conflicts are resolved. I mean, Isaiah's house is in conflict with the neighborhood. His house is a discrepancy. It sticks out, as does his front door. And as you sort of imagine, the person behind that door is not like everybody else. So I'm setting up that tension in pretty much everything I'm writing here. And everything I'm writing here is a reflection of character. He's not, of the neighborhood. This guy is different. And I'm setting off that discrepancy and trying to put an underlying tension in everything. I'm asked a lot about dialogue. This goes for dialogue too, really. If two people are talking, and they're talking, no matter what they're saying, what the subject matter, there is always conflict. It may not be said, but you have one character thinking, how do I smart this guy? How do I get his money? Does he know I'm guilty? Is he going to bust me? You always have this underlying tension so that the dialogue is not flat. If two people are even agreeing, still underneath, I'm going to kill this son of a bitch. And that's really one of the things that makes dialogue interesting. I try to give each character a distinct way of speaking: vocabulary, syntax, word choices, cadence, just like your friends and your family, or your favorite character. Whether it's Philip Marlowe or Chili Palmer or Miss Marple or your mom. They each speak. The way they speak is one of the things that makes them memorable. Juan L. Dodson, the guy who's got the makeover, he's my favorite character to write. Again, he's an ex-hustler and he's slick and opportunistic and very self-involved, and he has to go through this makeover, which he was resisting all the way. And his teacher is his mother-in-law, Gloria, who hates him. And she's giving him advice about every damn thing. And this goes on for days. And she's giving him advice about acceptable subjects to talk about. They were in the kitchen again. Conversation is very important, Gloria said. What you talk about is as revealing as how you talk. Subjects to be avoided: drugs, gangs, guns, your past, your non-existent job history, your friends, your criminal record, your business failures, your experiences as a convict, and of course, politics goes without saying. Stick to safe things like sports. Do you golf? Never mind. Do you work out, lift weights, run on a treadmill? No, I don't work out or lift weights. I don't need to, Dodson said. If I'm gonna run somewhere, I want a destination. I want to be somewhere. You can run on a treadmill all damn day, and where are you when you get off? The goddamn treadmill. That's a waste of my time. Then, say you ride one of those fancy bicycles, Gloria said impatiently, or you like to go rock climbing. Rock climbing? Dodson said. Did you say rock climbing? Yes, she snapped. That's what I said. You have a problem with that? Dodson was fed up. His blood pressure was so high, he thought his eyeballs would explode. When's the last time you seen a brother rock climbing? I got all kinds of danger in my life without hanging my ass off a goddamn mountain. Where the fuck are them people climbing to anyway? Ain't shit up there but snow. You can find snow at sea level if you know where to look. You know why you don't see more than 2 or 3 mountain goats at a time? Because most of them slip up, fall, and break their motherfucking necks. That's why. Rock climbing. Really now? What kind of pointless shit is that? What else do white people think of next? Rock climbing backward? Rock climbing buck naked while you're drinking a cappuccino? Just like all that other crazy bullshit they make up. Like ice fishing. Ice fishing. Have you seen that nonsense? First, you got to drill a hole in a frozen lake. Now, that's some crazy shit all by itself. Then, you got to dress up like your dog sledding across Siberia and fish with a fishing pole ain't no bigger than an ice cream stick. And for what? To catch a fish? I got news for you. You can go to the store and buy a goddamn fish and you don't even have to wear a sweater. Come to think of it, you can buy a fish that's already cooked. Motherfuckers never heard of Mrs. Paul. You don't have to find, catch, or clean a box of fish sticks. And what was that other thing? Dodson said. What's it called? Curling. Yeah, that's it. I ain't never seen a brother curling. I hope I never do. Sliding down the ice with a motherfucking broom, sweeping shit nobody could see. You might as well dust the furniture while you're moonwalking or wash your car while you're doing reps with a cast iron frying pan. You know what I seen on ESPN? Some white people kayaking in the goddamn whitewater rapids. You believe that? First of all, if you take a kayak in the rapids, you deserve whatever happens to you. You know you shouldn't be in there with all them rocks and currents and shit. You could die. Use your damn head. Drive a couple of miles to the lake where all the black folks are swimming around and having picnics. I'll tell you something else too. Anytime you need a helmet to go in the water, you know you're about to do something stupid. What if somebody told you to wear a bulletproof vest before you got in the jacuzzi or strap on a Glock 9 when you're about to take a shower? Wouldn't that give you pause? Wouldn't you think, maybe I'll stay dry today? You know what I seen on TV? A white boy had a goddamn lion for a pet, named him Chauncey and treated him like a great big kitty cat. Right up until the day that beast ate him like a Chinese chicken salad and spit out the bones. Dodson stopped. Glory was gone. Well, all right then, Dodson said, and he went off to bed. You're not going to mistake Dodson for anybody else. You know, Elmore Leonard said, everybody talks, meaning everybody says exactly what they want to say in their own vernacular. And the effect of that is to elevate the character. Dodson's no longer a hustler. He's this hustler. He's this particular hustler. Rewriting is another question that comes up. Rewriting is not rereading. You just, going through the pages. Oh, this is okay. Well, I like that. Maybe I'll tweak this. It becomes this sort of self-congratulatory process. When you're rewriting, you're asking yourself 2 questions. And the first one is, what's wrong? What doesn't work? What's clunky? What doesn't need to be here? What's superfluous? What's just bad writing? And the other question is, how can it be better? Clearer, more exciting, more intense, funnier, better written. And if you're serious about this, you're going over your writing over and over and over again, asking the same questions about the same page over and over and over again. And if you extend that process long enough, your writing will get better. But it's a question of, do you have the commitment? Do you have the will to do this all damn day, every day, which is my life. The prologue in IQ is about 2 pages long. I rewrote it 26 times. There were 7 takes, and then I rewrote those because I knew going in who the gatekeepers were. And nobody's going to close my book in 10 pages, please. And you should be that confident about your writing. Somebody may not want to buy it, but they're not closing it in 10 pages. When I do this, when I'm rewriting and I'm making check marks on all the things that I have to correct or do better, it looks like the CIA redacted the document. You know? And if I don't find 3 wrong things on a page, I'm not working hard enough. And if I don't find 3 wrong things the next time I read the page, I'm not working hard enough. And it just takes that kind of intense concentration to bring your writing up to a professional level. And if you already write at a professional level, then to get better. You know, you never really want to write the same book twice. You never want to stay at the same skill level. I mean, this is your profession. And you know, plenty of writers who never get better. They sell a lot of books, but they never get better. They never take chances. They write the same book over and over and over again, and their writing's the same. Well, that's fine if that's who you are. But if you really want to be a professional, and this is your profession, man, this is you as a doctor or whatever, you try to get better, and the only way to do that is this intense scrutinizing. You know, when a med student is working with a cadaver, you know, they're not just poking around in there, man. You know, they're trying to understand, how does this work? And that's you. You know, of course, you know, you should read. The difference with a writer is you study what you read. You know, you want to know how to write suspense? Read Joe Nesbo. You know, he'll crank it up till you can't stand it anymore, and then he'll crank it up some more. He's so good. And if you read that sequence, you'll see how he layers in these little elements, one after the other, until the tension is too much to take. But you have to study that. You know, you have to look for the mechanics. You should come away with a blueprint. If you want to study dialogue, read Elmore Leonard. He'll have like 3 pages of dialogue, never see the character, but you know exactly who that character is. It's amazing. It's amazing. He defines characters all the way through his book with just dialogue. You know how they look. You know their back. It's really incredible. But you really have to study his dialogue to see how he does that. If this is going to be your career, you know, you should have that intense curiosity to figure these things out. Okay, voice, toughie. You know, for a long time, I did not have my own definition of voice. I knew how others defined it, but I didn't have a definition for myself. But I realized what that meant to me while I was rewriting Righteous, a second book. When I rewrite, I'm making literally thousands of decisions. This word over that word, red hat, green hat, turn left, turn right, cut this, keep this, on and on and on and on and on. And since I do it repeatedly, I end up making thousands of decisions. This is not exceptional. You know, every writer you admire does some variation of this. But I think cumulatively, those decisions are your voice because nobody else will make the same decisions as you. This assumes, of course, that you've asked the thousands of questions that led to these thousands of decisions. No rigor, no work ethic, no voice. It's guaranteed. You know, if you don't have that relentless determination to master your craft, you stand a very good chance of being generic or never finishing a book at all. There's nothing glamorous or romantic about being a novelist. You know, I'm not lounging in a deck chair with a glass of white wine, you know, looking out at the ocean. I'm in my, you know, cave-like study, and the shutters are closed, doors closed. And, you know, I'm sitting there in my pajamas and getting taco juice on my keyboard and talking to my dog. And that's my damn day. That's my day. That's my day every day. You know, I work until about 1 in the afternoon. And then I go do whatever I have to do, come back around 4, put in another couple hours or more if I'm hot. When I was touring, I went to different cities to speak. But if I took all the events and put them back to back, it would end up being about 2 weeks. And again, man, writing is a process job. You have to love the actual process of writing. That's really the only thing that will sustain you. I mean, if you sort of kind of like to write, it's like saying, well, I'm gonna win the New York Marathon, and I sort of kind of like to run. My ankles hurt, I get all sweaty. You just can't sustain it unless you actually enjoy the process, which I do. Again, which every writer you admire also loves to be in there. In it so deep, you're not looking over your own shoulder. You're in that scene. You are that character, and I love that. It's way more interesting than my own life, and it's self-satisfying because you write something and and it's good, and that spurs you on. More process. I mean, I'm much happier writing than I am when I get a good review or when I finish a book. When I finish a book, I'm like, well, what next, man? So if you're considering being a novelist, you really have to ask yourself, man, is this the life I want? Is this how I want to live? Really, seriously, not a lot of people do.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I feel like a big thank you is owed to you. A big thank you, because this was like Joe Ide's masterclass in writing, right? And it didn't need to be full of glitz and glamour and all of it. You were getting down to the nitty gritty. And I think that myself and other people are going to appreciate that, even if you're not a writer. I mean, you were watching me the whole time, nodding and smiling and laughing at all your anecdotes, because I love publishing and I love books.
Yeah.
But it's not something that, unless it's your world, you're familiar with. So thank you for that. And I know that it was a huge masterclass. Plus, I almost peed my pants laughing between that scene between Dodson and Gloria when he's talking about stupid white people sports, because it's true, that's what they are. And that was awesome. So thank you for that humor too. We have some time for some questions.
Sure.
But I want to ask you, one, as you were talking, that came to mind was about Billy and empathy. And you described this character in Smoke as, for lack of a better word, a manic conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm.
How did you turn your empathy on for that? What was that process like?
I've experienced all of these things myself in a milder version. I mean, who has not been paranoid and who has not been manic? And it's a question of taking what I know and what I've seen and what I've read and stretching it and trying to get past even the behavior into how the character is feeling. I look for those things, like I said. Right around the corner from my house, there was a liquor store, A&J Liquor. Winos used to sit out there on orange crates and drink Thunderbird all day. One of them was a man named Beck. Beck was elderly, very tall, and he had a very dignified way of carrying himself. He reminded me a little of Morgan Freeman. And Beck was immaculate. He wore a herringbone sport coat, shirt and tie, brown slacks with a crease in them, and brown and white spectator shoes. He was sharp, and he did this every day. Now, my older brother's name is Jack, so he called me Little Jack, and he called my mother Mrs. Jack. My mother, 5 feet tall, very prim and proper. And every day she would go down the bus stop, catch a bus for work, and Beck would be waiting for her. And she would say, "Good morning, Beck, how are you?" And he would say, "Oh, I'm old and slow, Mrs. Jack, but I'm doing all right." And he would stay with her at the bus stop so that nobody messed with her. And nobody ever did because they carried a gun. And I have this image of them, this tall, elegantly dressed wino and my little mom, standing at the bus stop talking like they were old friends. And I guess they were. And there was such a sweetness about it, a wistfulness. And that's the kind of thing I try and get down on the page above and beyond story. It's those kinds of things that a writer accumulates. And those are the feelings you try and impart in your characters.
That's fantastic. And another thing that you mentioned, and you've done it with all your storytellings, with the woman that came out of the house to tell you about India, your mother, and Mr. Beck. And I'm curious, you described it as being a spy in a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious when that analogy came to you, and maybe when you got bit by the bug of realizing, oh, this is pretty cool, and this is essential to what I do, being a spy in writing.
Well, it was never actually cool. I was a little kid, a small kid in a big neighborhood. And I couldn't compete on any level. Everybody was bigger, faster, more stylish, cool. Everybody was poor. We all wore the same hand-me-downs. But, I looked like I jumped off a freighter from North Korea. And my neighbor, the black kid, he looked cool. And so, since I was just never in the mix anyway, I became a watcher, a listener. And I have always been like that. Even as a kid, I couldn't articulate it then, but I was always wondering, what are these people doing? Why are they saying this? Why are they saying what they're saying? Why is my dad saying that? That's not true. And it's just a part of me now. It's a part of me now. I've lived my whole life exactly like that.
Well, I think it's cool. It may not have been that way then, but what a wonderful superpower, so to speak, to have, of being able to see the world in that way. You've taught us so much tonight, and here on Tattered Cover, we like to ask this question as the ending question for our events. But what did this book teach you? What did Smoke in particular? What did you learn from it?
There's a lot of pain in the book. And I didn't realize it until well after I'd written it, that it was my own pain. I don't really try to do that. I don't really try to impart necessarily my own personal life into a book. But there are moments in the book that have a direct parallel to my life. And I did not know I was doing that. And that was a revelation. It's not disturbing or anything, but it was a revelation.
Wow. Thank you for that honesty. No, it's there's one author that I know that I've talked to recently on these events that talked about leaving a little piece of herself in every book she writes. And then she goes, it even goes deeper sometimes when I put a little bit of myself in each character.
Yes.
And that's resonated, I think, with a lot of us when we hear that and see that. And I think you did a really wonderful job of humanizing authors tonight. Not just yourself, but also the job. And I want to say thank you for that. I think it's
You're very
wonderful.
welcome.
I was dying. I hope you saw. I was enjoying every moment of it, and as a publishing nerd, and just loving hearing you tell those stories. So thank you for that, Joe. I want to give you a chance to remind people who you are and where they can find you online, and anything else before we close out tonight.
Oh, I'm terrible at this.
Oh, okay.
You want to tell them?
Well, You're Joe Ide.
There you
You're
go.
the author of Smoke,
There it
which
is.
is the 5th in the IQ mystery series. And you can get that book today at tattercover.com
Yes.
or at any one of our 4 locations. You should definitely pick it up, and you can pick up the first one, IQ, as well if you're new to this series. It takes you on quite a journey. And the snippets that you got tonight, there's only more of that to come. I'm sure you can find him on social media and his website, which is probably something close to joeide.com or Joe Ide Writer. And you can search for him on
I
social
could never
media.
do this. I could never do that. I could never do that.
It's okay. I covered the bases,
Thank
right?
you. Thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
No, it's my pleasure. Well, if you'll stick around while I close this out here for the evening.
Sure.
Once again, you guys can get Smoke at tattercover.com and one of our locations. We want to thank you guys again for joining us and for supporting local businesses and shopping locally. We wouldn't be here without you. So thank you for this evening. And we can't wait to see you until next time. Check out more events at tattercover.com/events. You can register there. Stay safe, everybody. Happy reading. Bye, all.
Bye.
And we're out.